You're listening to the June 2nd edition of Morning Light. My name is Simon Rusnak. It's the first Friday of the month, a time for literary lovers to rejoice as we welcome back Chris Hall of McNally Robinson Booksellers to profile 5 titles in What to Read. Hello, Chris.
Good morning, Simon.
Well, welcome to June and welcome to summer, apparently.
Indeed.
This feels like the July edition of What to Read.
It does. I'm confused.
As am I. But hey, we're going to clarify things with some great picks, no matter the time of the year. But given this warm weather, finding some shade, staying hydrated, and grabbing a good book, a great way to beat the heat, if you ask me. So let's jump right into it. What's up first?
First is a new novel. It's called To the Forest. It's by Suzanne Barbeau-Lavalette. And if that name sounds familiar, she's the author of the novel Suzanne, which was a finalist for the Canada Reads competition in 2019. This is about a family. They're forced to retreat to the mother's childhood home due to the pandemic. And the home is a century-old country house set in a rural property. So the story becomes these 5 children and the parents discovering and rediscovering nature. They experience loss in both extended family, but also in the community. And the main thing I would say about this book is it's a fragmentary book. So it's told in bits and pieces. And so that means the story doesn't flow in a conventional way. And that can be a bit frustrating sometimes, if you don't know who's talking or where you are. But I always find that if you just relax those questions, the story just kind of washes over you. And it can be remarkable, the insights that come that way. It's definitely a different kind of storytelling, but I find when it's well done, it can be, quite insightful.
It's storytelling that's gotten some pretty rave reviews. It came out in 2021 in French, but this is the English translation done by the award-winning Rhonda Mullins.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's Quebec has some good writing happening. Some of it makes it to English.
And very, very lucky indeed. So that, again, To the Forest. Another title exploring the idea of home, and this from the McNally Author of the Month.
Lori Moore, yes, she's one of our favorites. The novel is called I Am Homeless If This Is Not My Home. And Moore is known for her short stories, I would say, more than her novels. She has collections like Bark and Birds of America is a huge one. She's also written novels, though, obviously, this one as well as A Gate at the Stairs. And this is a ghost story. It's maybe a couple of ghost stories, a couple of storylines in it. One set in the 19th century, one in the 21st century. In the earlier one, an unmarried woman running a boarding house. And in the later one, a slightly dysfunctional teacher who is losing his brother to cancer and also dealing with his grief for the death of his wife. And that sounds like it could be depressing, but if you know Lori Moore, this is not depressing. She is just has a quirky sense of humor, if I can call it that, keen sense of the absurd. And so she reminds me a bit of George Saunders, who I've recommended before. You just never know what's coming next. And it's amusing, maybe not laugh out loud funny, but it's just always amusing. So, and this layer of amusement she just uses to come at life from a different angle, and it's really, quite illuminating. It has some profound moments.
Yeah, I was reading reviews on this one, and one noting her irresistible wordplay and singular wry humor and wisdom. So it just sounds like a great read. Sounds like a great summer read too.
Yeah, it does.
You know, it really there's those certain books that they hit home in a different way. No pun intended. Right. Given the title you picked. Speaking of great reads, I know you've recommended this next author before, and if I remember correctly, you also called one of his other novels one of your all-time favorites. Is that right?
You stole my opening.
That's I
exactly
did? Look at that. And we don't coordinate these things, Chris. We should say that out loud.
That's right. Good memory. Yes, The Imposters, and it's by Tom Rockman, who The Imperfectionists is the novel you speak of. And it is one of my all-time favorites. When a novel that I read probably 20 years ago sticks with me as well as that one did. It's and it was a group of eccentrics all tied to a newspaper that was dying in Europe. So his new one is an eccentric. It's a novelist, Dora Frenhofer. She was once successful, but is now aging, and she knows her mind is starting to go a little bit. So she's determined to finish this final book and reverse her fortunes. And so she spins stories out of people in her life. Some of them, I believe, are fictional. It's hard to tell exactly. Probably doesn't matter. But as she spins these stories, you get kind of closer and closer to who she is and what her story is. And even though she's cantankerous and grumpy, she's she's a person in there, and you slowly kind of get her shape and get her get her history and start to understand her a bit.
A writer writing about writing.
Yes, indeed.
It sounds
It
like
does
it's
happen.
great fodder for a novel. And, this is one of those where I'm curious, in your quest to become bookseller of the world, I wonder if there is perhaps certain things where you can kind of get a quick glimpse. Is this one of those that you've had the chance to read yet?
Mm-hmm.
You have.
Yeah.
A highly anticipated title, though, as
right,
that release
exactly.
is coming.
Doesn't come out till the end of the month.
Exactly.
But,
But
I always
these
get
are
a
the
sneak
perks.
peek.
These are the perks, and that's why you're here, Chris. So you can tell us
right.
what to look forward to. And this is one of those that I'm sure you've had circled on the calendar for a
I
while
have.
now.
Yeah, I see it coming for sure.
So a bit of a disclaimer before your next pick. You do a lot of reading, as we've talked about, in a wide variety of genres, well documented here and on McNally and in the newsletter. So what you're about to say isn't a statement, but instead a title. What is this title, Chris?
I only read murder.
Yeah, let's say that again. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to make this some sort of declaration, but tell us about this next one.
Well, it is by Ian and Will Ferguson, and the brothers Ferguson are very well known. Each has won a Stephen Leacock, and in fact, Will has won several times, and that's an award for humor writing in Canada. And this is them just having fun writing a mystery novel. Their sleuth is Miranda Abbott, once known for crime solving and karate chopping as a church pastor she played on TV. She's fallen on hard times. She's signed up for a small town Happy Rock Little Theater, and on opening night, one of the actors is murdered live on stage in front of 100 witnesses, but nobody actually saw what happened. So it's clearly up to her to solve the case. So she undertakes solving the case. And the good news is that this is the first in a planned comedic series.
Oh.
So the Fergusons are going to have more fun in future.
This sounds like almost Schitt's Creek meets Only Murders in the Building, which is another great show starring Steve Martin and Martin Short. Is that a fair kind of comparison?
Say so. Yeah, absolutely. It's got that small town humor. There's a few Stuart McLean I would think of. Absolutely. There's a tradition of this.
All right. So there's another fun one for you. And now for something totally different.
That's right. Just in case you're getting too comfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
This book is called Game of Edges: The Analytics Revolution and the Future of Professional Sports. It's by Bruce Schoenfeld. And it is an exploration of the business side of sports. Not the relatively big businesses of even a few years ago, but they are billion-dollar enterprises now. And so this is the era of the tech-savvy franchise owners. And data and technology is driving everything on the sports side. It's player analytics. If you're a sports fan, you know about this. Different teams use it to different degrees. Different sports use it to different degrees. But this is also about using data on the marketing side. So if you think about how Google and Facebook use data and the value of eyeballs. And so the question he asks is the value of our attention more or worth more than wins and losses of the team? They just have to keep you interested. And I think that's fascinating. I think we all know that there's a business side to the sports we watch, but it is going to another level. This book argues, and it's hard to think it's not.
We're in this age of like analytics overload, and it sounds like he really kind of crunches the numbers. And you mentioned just the business side of it, the analytics for player analytics. And I think if any of us have tried to watch any of the Stanley Cup playoffs, we've all been confronted with sports betting now too, right? So there's so many facets to the game that all add up to this, as you say, billion-dollar industry. Yeah. And so really interesting to hear that approach. I always ask this when it gets into these types of titles, Chris, but is it approachable in terms of how he breaks it down?
It is, absolutely. Right. I mean, you have to be a sports fan.
Yeah.
I am kind of a beyond a sports fan and a bit fascinated by exactly that. Like some of the data that they throw out there that you can bet over or under on it.
Yeah, it's really
wild. Yeah, it is wild.
Yeah, it
seems
is truly
endless.
Wild. Yeah.
And so he gets into all of that. So if you're interested in that and it's very compelling. I didn't know how interested I was, but this book was kind of, wow, this is fascinating.
Yeah, Chris Hall, number cruncher. We'll add it to the resume. So, Chris, while I got to hear in the studio, I mean, June is an exciting month, especially for all the students and all the teachers who happen to be listening, and all the parents as well. Tell us about this month of June and anything special planned that might be going on at McNally these days.
Well, we June is always that end of school, beginning of summer. The end of May was the beginning of summer. So people are turning their attention to warmer temperatures. You got to get grad gifts, you got to get teacher gifts. So yeah, we've got lots of options for that. Father's Day, sports fan. That last title would be a pretty good one for a father who's into sports. So yeah, lots busy June, but we kind of just try to keep it simple and offer a wide variety of choices for whatever you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, that you do exactly. The one thing that I'm thinking you might not be selling a lot of are those wonderful McNally sweaters that I've sported before. But given this weather, I mean, I've sort of put mine aside. But hey, maybe some cooler nights on the way.
I was going to say, it cools off at night. You might need it.
It should. And like you say, I mean, June is just at a very exciting time of the year and lots to explore over at McNally. I've told this story before, but for me, my family tradition was my mom and I on the very last day of school in elementary school would always go to McNally, have lunch Prairie Ink, and then pick some reads for the summer. And so, yes, I imagine many others thinking of doing exactly that. As always, you can follow along at McNallyRobinson.com. 2 locations here in Winnipeg at the Forks and over at Grant Park. We'll get all of Chris's picks up on the website, classic107.com. Chris, great seeing you as always.
Nice to see you.
See you in August. No, it's not July yet. It just feels like
Have
it
a
out
good
there.
summer.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.